Hey guys, what's going on? It's Eli, back with another review video, and once again, I've got with me one of my good friends, Anchorman.
Hello there.
Yes, and as I teased in the last review video that, which also had Anchorman, I teased that we would be reviewing the next X-Men film, and, Marvel film, and that's right. You know which X-Men film we're reviewing, and of course, continuing on reviewing the Marvel films as well as the X-Men films, we've now finally come to X-Men Apocalypse. Yes. And, good thing I have Anchorman joining me for this, because, fun fact, X-Men Apocalypse was Anchorman's first X-Men film, is that correct?
Yes, it was X-Men Origins Wolverine, but that's a Wolverine movie, but this movie is about the X-Men, so this is my first X-Men movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, even though X-Men Origins Wolverine is still an X-Men film, and because, because of the title X-Men Origins, in fact, it was supposed to be this planned new, series of movies about the origins of some of the X-Men characters. But, of course, that never came to be. So, because we all know how the first one turned out. It killed it on the first try, literally. But anyways, so I'll go ahead and read the description / the story. Worshipped as a god since the dawn of civilization, the immortal Apocalypse, played by Oscar Isaac, becomes the first and most powerful mutant, awakening after thousands of years. He recruits the dish-hardened Magneto, if I said that one word right, and the other mutants to create a new world order as the fate of Earth hangs in the balance of Professor X / Charles Xavier and Raven lead a team of young X-Men to stop their seemingly invincible nemesis from destroying mankind. So, for X-Men Apocalypse, because literally, it picks up where we last left, where the last X-Men film left off, at the end of Days of Future Past, where there was a tease that, there was a mutant building the pyramids. And again, because, that was, setting up, the next X-Men film, which wouldn't take that long for us to see, after Days of Future Past. It wouldn't be until 2 years later that we would get this. And yet, another X-Men film with young versions of the X-Men characters. And once again, we would get the returning appearance of James McAvoy as young Charles Xavier, Michael Fassbender as Eric / Magneto, Jennifer Lawrence as Raven / Mystique, Nicholas Hoult as Hank McCoy / Beast. Moira comes back in this, once again played by Rose Byron, and new additions to the cast. We have Jean Grey, played by Sophie Turner, Scott Summers / Cyclops, being played by Ty Sheridan. Yeah, I got that right. And I almost forgot to mention, Quicksilver comes back in this, once again played by Evan Peters. And the main antagonist, En Sabah Nur, if I'm saying that name right, but he goes by Apocalypse, being played by Oscar Isaac. And, fun fact, and pretty much, everybody knows this, that Oscar Isaac would years later do something else, a Marvel adaptation, which being a show, and we all know that to be Moon Knight. Yeah. But, go ahead.
It was a 2099 Spider-Man he also played recently.
Yeah, I keep forgetting about that. Yeah, because he voices one of the Spider-Man characters in the Spider-Verse animated films. That too, so my bad. And for this being his first ever, role in something Marvel, hey, he was pretty good as Apocalypse. What do you have to say on the main antagonist of the film Apocalypse?
I think he's very interesting. I just wish they did a little bit more of Apocalypse, his motives. I felt like he could have had more scenes, but I feel he's very interesting. Even his design looks pretty good. he doesn't look like the comics, but they their own twist to fit.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes in movies, like, they would sometimes, like, with changes in movie adaptations of books and such, but, the most important thing is, it's got to be changes that make sense. And of course, that goes for Apocalypse. I mean, I'm gonna have to go back and look at how he looks in the comics, but, how he looks in this doesn't bother me. And so, yeah, so the opening to the film, well, we get a bit of a narration from Charles Xavier, as in any of the X-Men films, aside from Last Stand. Narration from Charles for Last Stand was unfortunately cut. But the opening to the film, because basically, yeah, again, where we last left off in Days of Future Past, it teased, seeing a mutant building the pyramids, and there's like this ceremony happening, and inside the pyramids, well, they take on a tradition where, well, we see an old Apocalypse, and he's about to transfer himself to a new body, and that being like the body of, well, we see Oscar Isaac, like we see him out of makeup, and thus, Apocalypse, he is being transferred to that body and to take the form and look of, Oscar Isaac's body, basically. And, like, the Pharaoh guards, like, who are not mutants, there are a couple mutants that help, do this ceremony for Apocalypse. They don't like the direction that what these mutants are doing, and they ambush the mutants and basically crumbling the pyramids on top of them, and especially Apocalypse. And, each of the mutants that are on Apocalypse's side, they sacrifice themselves to save him, and by doing so, and thus, for thousands of years, Apocalypse is buried, underground. And then, after the credits roll, and we get the introduction of Scott Summers, and this is where he gets his powers of, like, laser vision, and how, he can't open his eyes anymore. Only, like, with him opening his eyes, he'll just unleash, like, the laser beams. And he gets some help from his brother, which being Alex Summers. Yeah, almost forgot to mention, because Alex Summers / Havok, if I'm saying that superhero name right, yeah, once again played by Lucas Till. Yeah, he helps out his brother. And I'll be honest, like, when I first saw First Class and with Alex Summers being in the film, I had no idea that he was related to Scott Summers, but I don't know, maybe I don't see why some people would not think they were related at first. But what did you think on that, Anchorman?
They've been brothers in, like, the comics, but they don't really acknowledge it too much. But
no,
they feel more brother-like in this movie, though.
Yeah, like they don't they don't mention anything about being brothers in the film, you're saying?
Like in the cartoon, like.
Okay.
They didn't not too much.
Okay. Well, okay, so there's that, so, but yeah, in this film, yeah, because, like, it's clear that, of course, they are brothers, even though not that, as you said, not that much in, like, the cartoon and so on. We also, like, get the introduction of, more mutants who we've seen in, like, some of the past X-Men films, and we see them as younger versions. Nightcrawler / Kurt Wanger is in this, and being played by Cody Smith McPhee. I think I got the full name right. And we get Angel, played by Ben Hardy. And you know what? That's pretty cool, because we have two actors who have played Angel that go by the first name Ben. Ben Foster was Angel in Last Stand, and Ben Hardy as Angel in Apocalypse. So there's a fun fact for you. That, you know what, that can happen sometimes, where some actors would play kind of like the same character, and they would share, like, maybe the first or last name. Like, good example, George Reeves and Christopher Reeves, like, they played Superman. So there you go. Some of the actors who have played Doctor Who, like, they've sometimes shared some first and last names. I think probably, like, the first name, I'm pretty sure. If you get my point. But anyways, and, once again, we see Raven, and, like, she's kind of, like, hiding, and the same goes for Eric, because, well, after what happened in Days of Future Past, Magneto / Eric and Raven / Mystique, like, they went hiding and they left. For Eric, do you remember, like, where he resided at the beginning of this film?
Like, he's, like, at some forest-like area, and, like, he's, like, speaking a different language as his factory job.
Yeah.
And name.
Yeah, just can't remember the name of the location where he's at, so apologies. You can let us know in the comment section, guys. But, yeah, so he is having a normal life. Like, he has, like, works at a factory, like steel and so on, and, you know, he's married, and he's got a wife, and he's got a daughter. And, let me see, because, like, they should be listed, like, somewhere. Oh, well, okay. Oh, here they are, because, yeah, Eric's wife, Magda, being played by Caroline Bardzak, I don't think I'm even saying the last name right, and Nina, Eric's daughter, being played by T.J. McGibbon. I think I got that right. And so, yeah, again, Eric, he's having a perfect, normal life, and nothing bad is happening to him yet. Raven, she discovers Nightcrawler because, like, at this, like, mutant fighting championship, like, you know what that was all about?
I think it's, like, where they capture random mutants and make them just fight each other in, like, this gladiator place.
Exactly, yeah, so that's what's happening, and I think, if I'm correct, because when we first see Nightcrawler, he had just defeated and, like, taken down, I think, the Blob. And it would have to be the Blob, so...
He was Origins of Wolverine.
Yeah, so I assume that was a younger version of the Blob that was taken down by Nightcrawler. And once the Blob is taken down, well, we get the introduction of Angel, and... you know, even Angel tells Nightcrawler that they have to fight, or else, you know, they're going to get shot at. But that's when, at one point, Raven, she helps out freeing them by turning off the power and the electric bars, you know, keeping them in the cage. And when Nightcrawler does fight Angel, well, at one point, Angel, he gets one of his wings burned from the electric. Of course, Nightcrawler didn't mean to do it, but, well, Angel was the one that told Nightcrawler they have to fight. So what was he expecting? So when the cage is turned, the electric cage, I should say, is turned off, that's when, like, you know, Angel, he makes his escape, and Raven helps out Nightcrawler get out of there. And at the Xavier School, because... Alex brought his brother, Scott, to see the professor and to help out with his powers and to controlling it. And again, because he can't open his eyes. And yeah, because again, we see Charles, we see Hank, and, you know, and at one point, because, yeah, Scott, because he has a blindfold, he accidentally bumps into Jean, and that's how they first meet, and kind of doesn't go well at first. And when, like, Charles meets with Scott and helping out Scott with his powers, and with the funny moments in this film, it wouldn't be a Marvel film without funny moments, and one funny moment is, you know, up to when Charles is training Scott to, you know, open his eyes and to, like, well, basically to test out his laser eyes, and, like, aiming for the water, and I think, like, aiming for that bullseye, you know, with bow and arrows. I think, yeah, that's what he was wanting him to aim at. But he accidentally aims for a tree that had been on ground for years, even when Charles was a kid, and then Charles telling Scott, like, you know, I used to, you know, my grandfather grew that tree. I used to swing on it, and it happens to be my favorite tree, and it just, you know, breaks apart. You remember that funny moment?
Yes, it was that poor tree.
I know. But it seems like Charles, like, got over it quickly, I guess, and he wasn't upset with Scott. I mean,
he's too calm to be mad.
What's that?
He's, like, too calm of an individual to be mad at over that.
Yeah, true. Exactly, because it's Charles Xavier. So, and eventually, because yeah, even like later on, Scott does receive the shades that like help him see, because the special kind of shades. I think it was Hank that designed and built those specifically for Scott. And at one point, Moira, because we once again see Moira, she's, on a mission, working at the CIA, and tracking down and finding the location of, like, where, obviously, Apocalypse is at, and these group of, like, people, like, with the tattoos, I guess that mark Apocalypse, and the symbol of, like, the triangle, whatever. You know what I'm talking about?
I think so.
What's that?
I think so.
Yeah, I mean, that's the best I can describe, so bear with me. But she, like, goes down there and sees that there's, like, a ceremony, like, I guess trying to resurrect Apocalypse, and he does so. He finally awakens, and Apocalypse, like, roaming around and looking and searching for mutants. But before I get to that, here's the thing, and, when Apocalypse awakens, that causes a huge earthquake around the world. Like, we see Nightcrawler and Raven, they feel it. Eric and his co-workers, they feel the earthquake, and that causes, like, one of, like giant barrels of lava to, like, almost hit one of his co-workers and killing him. But, Eric, he stops it by using his powers, but he kind of gets exposed, because we do see that some of the co-workers of his do see that he stopped it and using his powers. And very later on, because, here's the thing. Eric had already told his wife on who he is, and, his wife lovingly, like, trusts him and understands, and Eric trusting her to keep it all a secret on what he's done in the past, and especially, most infamously, what he did in Days of Future Past when he, had the president, captive, and what he did, like, bringing, like, a football stadium on the White House. Like, oh my gosh, like, because with that, but and Eric, he is planning for him and his beloved wife and daughter to move out of there and, to get the heck out of there. But unfortunately, I think, police, I'm pretty sure, they already got their daughter, and, just basically wanting Eric to, come full clean and, who he really is. And, Eric, he begs them to let his daughter and wife go, and, he'll let them take him in and so on. And, unfortunately, his daughter is very upset about this, and I think it's obvious and should have seen it coming. Like, his daughter having superpowers, and then like, summoning, like, birds, like, crows flying all around them, and one of the policemen, like, doesn't pay attention, and, like, letting go of a bow and arrow that strikes at both Eric's wife and daughter. Like, anything to say on that, Anchorman?
It's tragic, because it's his only thing to have. He had some kind of happiness, but then it's all taken away by these cops, right? Even if it was an accident, they still killed them both. And I love the part where he ends up killing all these cops by just using the coin that he killed Sebastian Shaw with. Yep.
And you're absolutely right on everything you said. And and what you just mentioned, because of him killing the cops with a coin, I don't think it was a coin. I think it was like a necklace or something like that. What's that?
I think it was.
Yeah. He did it exactly as how he killed, Kevin Bacon's character. What was his name again?
Sebastian Shaw.
Yeah, Sebastian Shaw. Yeah, I almost forgot. Yeah, Sebastian. How could that be difficult to remember the name? But yeah, he did it the same way as he killed Sebastian, although not how he killed Sebastian, not like through the head, but through their necks. Oh my gosh.
Brutal.
I know, it is brutal. And I do love this one moment where after he killed them, he just shouts in the sky, obviously, I guess, shouting at the, God, and, saying, is this what you want? Is this who I am? I think it's obvious, but yeah, and thus Eric, he's lost everything, but not really. Even like some of the other X-Men characters established that to him, especially Raven. But more until we get to that. And so with Apocalypse, he's in search of mutants, and he of course stumbles upon, and we get to see a younger version of Storm, being played by Alexandra Shipe, if I'm saying the last name right. It would have to be. That would have to be how you pronounce the last name. I don't know. But basically, like, at first we see Storm as kind of like a pickpocketing mutant, basically, and is confronted by, like, those, like, she was pickpocketing, and Apocalypse, like, standing in and easily taking care of them. In fact, like, putting one of them, like, up on a wall. Like, anything to say on that?
It's a unique visual effect that they did for that scene.
I know. And it shows you that, like, Apocalypse, because he is the very first mutant, like, you could just tell that there's something about him, like, he's very powerful, so...
He can kill people with just sand.
Yeah, yeah, that's what he did, because, like, he used sand and, like, going through their necks as well, so...
Anakin Skywalker would not like it.
No, I don't like sand, so had to make that reference. And you know what? Yeah, that's twice in this film where two X-Men villains, like, go for someone's necks. So it's true. So anyways, so Apocalypse, like, he at first, like, recruits Storm. In fact, Storm mentions that she looks up to Raven. In fact, most of the mutants, especially, like, the mutants at the Xavier School, look up to Raven, especially, well, after what happened in the last film. So, and Apocalypse, one by one, the mutants that he recruits, from Storm, from, Psylocke, am I saying that name right, Anchorman?
Is it the girl with the little lightsaber thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it might be right.
I think maybe I think there's no doubt about it. The P is silent, so yeah. So again, one by one, recruiting the mutants. Apocalypse from Storm, Psylocke, and Psylocke being played by Olivia Munn. Angel and Magneto, like, making them more powerful. You know.
Are they villains?
What's that?
Do you think they're villains now?
Well, I mean, at first, like, well, they join Apocalypse throughout most of the film, but of course we all know that for Storm, of course she's redeemed, so, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, I do recall there was one episode from the X-Men cartoon series where Storm was captured and she was turned into evil. So I remember seeing a little bit of that on TV. But anyways. And so even, like, say, Raven at one point heard the news on Eric's whereabouts and how he was exposed, and, you know, and he's on the run, and especially after killing those policemen, and, you know, her and with Nightcrawler tagging along, going to the Xavier School to inform Charles about this. And, you know, a moment for Raven and Hank, you know, because they reunite. Even just like how in Days of Future Past, like, and in this, because, you know, Hank establishes to, Raven that he can take control of his, of him transforming into Beast. And, like, yeah, he told Raven and he told Alex when Alex, returned and brought his brother. And a funny moment from Nightcrawler, and it's true, where, you know, Nightcrawler says to Hank and Raven, "I'm blue too." Do you remember that part?
I think so.
Yeah, and it's true. And you know what? For the first time in an X-Men movie, we have all three well-known blue mutants together. So that being Nightcrawler, Mystique, and Beast. And what were we gonna say?
The Blue Squad.
Yeah, you're right. The Blue Squad. There you go. Okay, and at one point early on, and when the earthquake happened because of Apocalypse's awakening, in the Xavier School, like, Charles helped out Jean from, you know, she had a nightmare, that the world was like going to be coming to an end and so on. Well, yeah, and especially with Apocalypse. So, and that's when, like, and besides, like, Charles is aware about the earthquake that happens, and he goes to the CIA, and, he once again reunites with Moira, and, keep in mind, because in Days of Future Past, not Days of Future Past, First Class, getting mixed up, Moira's memories on everything that happened. I'm talking, say, when Moira and Charles first met, when she joined them and with the X-Men, what happened on the beach in Cuba. Xavier wiped all memory of her adventures with Charles and the X-Men. Everything that she's seen and so on was all erased, and of course she has no memory on Charles and any of the other characters for now, because what happens later on in the film, and until we get to that. And the fact that Charles, he's kind of like, he still has the hots for Moira. Like, anything to say on that?
I don't know. I mean, maybe they could be a good couple, but I don't know. It's been so long for them that maybe they just aren't really meant to be together.
And the fact that if I'm correct, like, and as the movie establishes, it had been about 10 years, I think, since he last saw Moira, I'm pretty sure. In fact, because, like, I don't know, because with Alex tagging along with Charles to the CIA and, Alex, like, kind of, like, messing with Charles, like, you looked her up and so on, and, like, Charles is like, I think he said, like, once or twice. It was pretty funny. Looking at pictures of her and so on, it's hilarious. And with Charles, like, freezing everybody in, like, the office and, making their way into Moira's office. And another funny moment where, like, Charles, he's surprised when he sees that, you have a son and you have a husband, and oh, that was funny. And thus, Moira, like, and after Charles and Alex tells Moira that they have special clearance of, the CIA, however they said it, Moira gives them all the information about Apocalypse and how for centuries, for many, many years, because of how Apocalypse has been on Earth, like, say, from medieval times into the Pharaoh Egyptian times, and as of now, and the setting of Apocalypse being set in the 1980s. Well, Apocalypse has finally awoken, and even at one point when he was in Storm's apartment, I guess you could say, and, like, learning everything basically on, what's on TV, everything that's going on around the world with machines and weapons, everything. Yeah, he's caught up, basically. And again, at one point, because Apocalypse, one by one, he's giving the mutants he chooses to join him, making them more powerful. I gotta tell you, like, when he gives Angel much better, like, wings and more power to Angel, oh my gosh, like, I won't deny it, because the visual effects for Angel's wings, like, the bones and everything, oh my gosh, like, it's understandable for that happening to Angel, but oh my gosh, and especially for that being in a PG-13 film, like, could you imagine how far they would have gone with that? Like, do you have anything to say on that part?
It was definitely gross to look at, but I didn't think it was too bad, but I don't know, they added the movie, I guess.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's just like, these things have to be done very carefully in PG-13 films. The best example is, in Revenge of the Sith, Anakin Skywalker being burned. So how can they do a PG-13 burn? Well, they found a way, so... And
the movie's so dark, too.
It is, yeah. And thus, they found a way of how, we see Angel's wings, like, the bones and everything, like, on his back in a PG-13 film for an X-Men film. So you get my point. And for Angel, because he now has steeled wings, like metal wings, and even, like, say, like shooting out, like, steeled feathers, like, that's pretty cool. And when it comes to Apocalypse recruiting Magneto, because Eric confronting his co-workers that, some of the co-workers, maybe not all of them, but some of them called the police on him, and even one of the co-workers is trying to convince Eric not to do this. And when Apocalypse and the other 3 mutants come in, it's pretty funny, because Eric's saying, who the F are you? Because one F-bomb in a PG-13 film, and for an X-Men film. Anything to say on that?
I think they censored some of the language if you watch it on, TV or something.
Of course they would. I mean, sometimes they would mute it, but sometimes they would just replace it with different words. So it's so painfully obvious sometimes, when it comes to movies being shown on TV and with them editing out the swearing. Oh my gosh. Anyways, so Apocalypse recruiting Magneto, and he brings Eric / Magneto to the place, where the camp was, and where, he was separated from his parents, and that moment where, he was having Eric reach down on the ground and unleashing and destroying and crumbling, the buildings and so on, and Apocalypse giving a speech. Anything to say on that scene?
The part where Magneto destroys the Holocaust. Is that what you meant?
Okay. Okay, so there's that. An intense scene right there. In fact, plenty of intense scenes in the film. And, when Moira, comes to the Xavier school, and, in a moment for Moira where, she says that it feels like she's been here before, so, deja vu. Xavier and Raven once again reunited, and Raven telling Xavier Eric's whereabouts, by using Cerebro, and using Cerebro, trying to locate and find Eric, and we see that Apocalypse is still, upgrading the mutants, he's giving, I think he's giving Angel a face paint tattoo or something like that. I don't know. Do you think that's what Apocalypse is doing, like giving Angel face paint tattoo or something?
I think so.
Okay, I think that's probably what it is, but I just thought I'd mention it because it's so obvious. But anyway, so Charles, he makes contact with Eric, and Charles, he always tries his best to convince his best friend on what is the truth and so on, and he understands Eric's pain, but Eric, he just doesn't want to listen, as he sometimes always does. And that's when Apocalypse does overhear Charles making contact with Eric, and Apocalypse making his way into Charles' mind and controlling Charles, and by doing so, in control of Charles, by using Charles, controlling the human beings, unleashing the nuclear missiles. Anything to say on that?
I was wondering what he wants to do with the nuclear missiles. I think he just wants to, get all of them. Mm-hmm. Making the world just bad.
Yeah, I think, having them be launched into the sky, and when they're into space, they would be turned around, and, coming straight back down to Earth, destroying mankind, basically. And then at one point, because Charles, he has Alex destroy Cerebro, literally destroy it, and even though, because it's kind of burning and stinging Charles's mind, of course, something like that would happen to Charles because of how sensitive his mind is and the power that he has, and with Cerebro, and, everything turns out fine, and, they succeed on destroying Cerebro, Alex for that matter. Well, and Charles, he's unconscious, and that's when Apocalypse, along with Magneto, Psylocke, Angel, and Storm, they step in and they capture Charles. And Alex was trying to stop them, but it was too late because as he was striking the laser, from his chest, they had just disappeared, and Alex, his lasers, aimed straight for, nuclear weapon or whatever it was. Do you remember what that was?
It was just a bunch of nuclear weapons.
Yeah, and Hank shouting at Alex, no, and it was too late because again, when they disappeared, it went straight for the weapons, as you said, and that causes a big explosion and causing the Xavier School to explode. But by the way, early on in the film, and while Charles and Alex were away and to recruit and to bring Moira in, Scott, Jean, and Jubilee, because Jubilee appearing in this, and because I'm well aware of the character of Jubilee and how much of of an important X-Men character she is, and Jubilee in Apocalypse being played by Lana Condor. Yeah, I'm familiar with Lana Condor. I know I've seen her in other films, but not that much for Jubilee, unfortunately, which at the time when I saw this movie, I wasn't really aware of how much of an important character Jubilee was. But do you have anything to say on that, Anchorman? On we didn't get that much of Jubilee in this film.
I was fine that she wasn't in the movie too much. I thought she had much of more of a role. I mean, she's more in the cartoons, but I thought she was fine in this movie.
Yeah, she was fine, and Lana Condor, she did her very best playing Jubilee, because Jubilee tagging along with Scott and Summer and with Nightcrawler, because Scott mentioning that they should go to the mall, and Nightcrawler has no idea what a mall is, and in fact, while they were out, they even at one point saw Return of the Jedi in theaters, because we know that they're seeing Return of the Jedi, we know that this Apocalypse, it does take place in the 80s, and it takes place in 1983, the same year when Star Wars came out.
Yes.
In fact, there was, one deleted scene, a montage, basically, where they were at the mall, and apparently at one point, they were breakdancing or something like that, and Nightcrawler joined in, and he was spinning on his tail, if you guys have seen the deleted scene of that, so they're making their way back, and they happen to arrive back at the Xavier School as it's blowing up, but also Quicksilver stepping in, and that's another thing because we once again we see him at his home, and we see his mother, and how Quicksilver he is wanting to go after Magneto because there's something about Magneto and Quicksilver, they're connected in some way, and we find out a little bit later until we get to that. Quicksilver, in fact, he gets some advice and word of advice from his mom that, it's gonna be very difficult to take on Magneto and stuff like that. So, she gave him a warning and a heads up, basically. And so Quicksilver, he makes his way to the Xavier School, and well, just like what happened in Days of Future Past, we once again get this, where a moment for Quicksilver where everything freezes, and it's because of him, and he sees that the Xavier School is about to blow up. The explosion is rising and making its way through the Xavier School, and thus the song, they picked out a good song for this. I think because the thing about that is, I remember my mom, she really didn't like the song that was played in Days of Future Past with Quicksilver, but she thought that this song played in Apocalypse, she thought it was good, so I thought I'd mention that. So Quicksilver just saving everybody, even say scooping water and saving a fish, saving a dog because a dog is eating a slice of pizza, and on the balcony one mutant was about to smooch on another mutant. It was, even Quicksilver thought that was disgusting. But do you have anything to say on that whole sequence, Anchorman, with Quicksilver?
That scene probably made me fall in love with the movie because I don't know, I just really like how fast pacing it is, even though he's in a slow motion. I just love that song, and that's why I love Quicksilver in this movie. You just love it when you see him running and saving up a mere second. It's awesome.
Exactly, yeah. And so, Quicksilver succeeds on saving everybody from the X-Mansion, and, when he was saving Hank and Raven and Moira, it was pretty funny, because when he was saving Moira, just, positioned, I guess, tangoing or something like that, so, and so, after everybody is saved, and, Jean, Jubilee, Scott, and Nightcrawler, they pull in, and, well, where's Alex? Because, well, even Quicksilver, as he established, he's pretty sure that he got everybody, but according to Hank, Alex was the closest to the blast, and, geez, I didn't really expect Alex to be killed. Like, do you have anything to say on that?
I think they should have not killed him off. I didn't see the point of that, but I guess it gave emotion for Cyclops, I guess.
It's true, yeah. In fact, well, not to mention, in the first X-Men films, we never see Alex Summers, so I don't know, but,
Class.
What's that now?
Unless you count his appearance in First Class, but that's like the new timeline.
Yeah, and besides, like, after what happened in Days of Future Past, the timeline changed for the younger versions of the X-Men characters, so that alone makes sense. But anyways, so unfortunately, yeah, Alex Summers being killed, and the X-Mansion just being completely destroyed. But, however, with all that happening, well, even at one point, Raven, because her power, no longer, being in disguise, and, all the mutants see her actual form, and, as Hank establishes to Raven, they all look up to her, and, it's her that has to help them, and so on. Well, at one point, Colonel William Stryker shows up. Yeah, just as things got, if things could not get so much worse, we've got Colonel William, he's now a colonel. He first went by Major, now he's a colonel. And young William Stryker, once again being played by Josh Hellman, if I'm saying the last name right. Go ahead.
He looks like John Cena. I said that last time.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I don't know, a little bit. Maybe a young John Cena, but anyways. So, Colonel William Stryker coming in, and his part in this, I think it's because probably he's aware of, what's going on, and obviously the mutants doing, and thinking, this is Charles's fault. Do you remember how this goes, and, with what Colonel William Stryker's doing?
Knocks out everybody with some device, and then he for some reason picks Mystique, a few others.
He picks Moira. She's not a mutant, but also picks Beast and picks Quicksilver.
I didn't pick them.
Yeah, and basically, because again, I think he's going after I guess Charles Xavier, and he's not gonna, knowing him, he's not gonna listen to a word on what they're saying, that there's a dangerous threat, a mutant threat, I should say, and even say Jean, Scott, and Nightcrawler, they sneak up on the helicopter, and trying to help get them out from being held. And when we see the base where Stryker and his men are, and we also see that, because Apocalypse, he, has Charles held hostage, and, he uses Charles to send a message to every single human being, from man, woman, child, and the same goes for the mutants. Just everybody around the world, sending them a message, and Charles, successfully, sent a secret message to Jean on, how to help out and so on, even, kind of changed some words that Apocalypse wanted him to say, the last couple of words that Apocalypse wanted Charles to say, but, of course, Charles, he changed it. Of course he wouldn't say those words, even if, the risk of him, being killed by Apocalypse. But, no, Apocalypse, he's just, should have known you wouldn't say those words, And at one point, because after Jean received the message, they get exposed. Even when Jean was, hiding them, being cloaked, they're exposed, and they at one point hide in one room where we hear grunting in a cell, in a cage or something, and even like in the trailers, we knew he was going to appear, and especially up to this. And Jean unlocks the cage, and we see Wolverine, and of course, being Hugh Jackman. Yeah, of course, we have to have an appearance from Hugh Jackman, and just like say how he appeared in First Class. You know, he only had one line in First Class, and in this Apocalypse, well, he has no dialogue. I mean, it's just him doing like the famous grunts and yelling. So, do you have anything to say on Wolverine's appearance in Apocalypse?
I really loved it. I wish he was in the movie more, but at least they explained what happened to his 70s self after Days of Future Past, at least.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, you know, that's a bit confusing because at the end of Days of Future Past, Mystique was disguised as Stryker, and we can tell because of the yellow eyes they show. And we know that she saved Wolverine, but, like, it's like, when did this happen? Like, when did the Stryker, like, capture Wolverine? Like, that's a bit confusing. I don't know, did they ever establish this? Or is this something for us audience and fans to think of? Like, if you get what I'm saying, so...
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but anyways, but you know what? That doesn't matter because, you know... What matters is we have Wolverine appearing in this. He's unleashed, and of course, you know, he's killing all of the guards and the soldiers. And up to when, like, he's about to escape, and Jean, he helps out Wolverine/Logan, like, get that device off his head, and to help, like, remember who he is. Like, try to find some, like, memories he had in the past so he can remember who he is, and, you know... feel much better, of course, and thus he escapes, and, you know, thanks to Jean. And it was pretty funny because at one point Scott said, you know, I hope that's the last time we see him. And think again, Scott, because you get to see you'll see him again. So if you get the joke. So
I would just like to say,
go ahead.
I wonder how Hank and Charles didn't bother to go look for Logan from Days of Future Past. I don't know.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, that is a good point. Like they didn't bother saving him or finding him. Yeah, because especially after Magneto threw him. Like, yeah, that's a good point. But it's just how the movie turned out, so it's one of those things. But anyways, and so. Another funny moment because, you know, Nightcrawler trying to make communication with Moira, Raven, Beast, and Quicksilver in their cell, and turning on the microphone and telling them, even though like the microphone and speaker is a bit damaged and, you know, it kind of cuts off a little bit, like telling them to, you know, stand away from the door, and of course they now understand, and thus Scott, you know, using his laser vision to cut it off, and thus, you know. They all escape, and they get into one of like the aircrafts and taking like war suits, and yeah, because pretty much they're at war with Apocalypse, and thus we come to where Apocalypse and yeah, I think it's Apocalypse, and I think Magneto as well. They basically crumble like the city that they're at, and basically like. At one point, like, Apocalypse and Magneto, like, they built pyramids. In fact, there's even statues of them inside of the pyramid. And with, them, you know, having Charles held hostage, well, because, even Jean figures out what Apocalypse is going to do with Charles. Apocalypse is going to he's going to transfer himself to Charles's body, and by doing so, he would control the minds of every single living human being and mutant on the planet, and thus chaos would happen. So there's that. And so each of the mutants, like Raven, Quicksilver, like going and confronting Magneto, Beast, Scott, taking on Storm, Angel, and Psylocke, and Nightcrawler making his way inside of the pyramid to, you know, save Charles and to stop the, you know, the ceremony, like of Apocalypse, you know, transporting to Charles's body, as I said. And we once again get another fight between Nightcrawler and Angel, and a fight that goes on between Beast, Psylocke, a fight that goes on between, Jean and Scott against Storm. And I gotta tell you, the action in this is just really cool. Do you have anything to say on that stuff?
There's a bunch of stuff going on,
I know.
Beast is fighting the Psylocke girl, and he chokes him, but I think he gets it off or something.
Yeah. And at one point, don't mean to cut you off, but at one point, because Nightcrawler, he succeeds on saving Charles, and because of the transferring Apocalypse to Charles, that causes Charles to go bald, and basically, and again, as I said a little bit early, because how the timeline for the younger versions of the X-Men characters, it's altered and changed, and again, after what happened in Days of Future Past, how Charles goes bald, we see how it happens in this, because of, again, the whole thing of Apocalypse transferring himself over to Charles's body. So, do you have anything to say on that? Him going bald?
I think Hollywood's obsessed with James McAvoy being bald. That's what I gotta say.
Yeah, because from that and M. Night Shyamalan's trilogy, because with Split and Glass, Unbreakable, so that trilogy. And so, Nightcrawler saving Charles. Even at one point, because they all get back on the aircraft, the jet, and they try to escape, but even Psylocke and Angel, they're on their tail, and even at one point, I think Jean basically had the jet go straight down to the ground, and Nightcrawler using his powers very powerfully, because he it's a bit difficult for him to teleport with a lot of people. But he succeeds, and Angel gets killed when the aircraft crashes. But, Storm and Psylocke, they survived, but too bad for Angel. So, in fact, he didn't get the chance to be redeemed, because Angel is a good guy. So, too bad for Angel. However, what's that?
He just dies.
I know, yeah. Not that I'm complaining, but still, he could have at least survived and be redeemed, But it's just, hey, It's just how the movie was written and how it was done, and what we got. So there's that. But for Storm, I think at this point, she is redeemed, and especially when seeing her idol, who she looks up to, Raven, being present. Because with Raven and Quicksilver confronting Magneto and convincing him that, he still has family. They're his family. In fact, Quicksilver, because we found out from Quicksilver that he is the son of Eric/Magneto. And when he told that to Raven, and she was surprised to hear, and Quicksilver saying that him and his mom, and Raven got the picture. Do you have anything to say on that? And, the fact that Quicksilver is the son of Magneto?
I thought they could have handled the whole Magneto fodder thing. They didn't answer if Quicksilver would ever do it, even in the next movie. I didn't get why they didn't. They were setting it up, and then it just went nowhere.
And still, how, it's perfectly fine, the fact that, Magneto is the son, the father of Quicksilver.
Yeah.
Okay. Because that's pretty interesting. I don't recall if that's been in the comics, him being...
They're related in the comics.
Oh, they are related?
And he's related to Scarlet Witch.
I was gonna mention that the fact that somewhere in the comics, Magneto is related to Scarlet Witch, and Scarlet Witch, she too is the daughter of Magneto. So interesting fun fact. So, anyways, them confronting Magneto, and Raven telling Magneto that what he should do, and saving Charles. And I tell you, because after what Nightcrawler did, because he got unconscious, like, just after like saving all of them, all at once, because how many people he saved and teleporting, because for him it's a bit tricky to teleport with so many people, so he got unconscious from that, and the confrontation between the X-Men and Apocalypse, even when, like, say, one by one, because like Raven and Quicksilver going at it with Apocalypse, and at one point Quicksilver, he successfully does so by, with the slow-mo, like time slowing down and him beating up Apocalypse, but Apocalypse catching up on Quicksilver's speed and just holding Quicksilver, like, by the arm, like, kind of, like, twisting it and, like, breaking one of his legs, and Mystique, going after Apocalypse, but he grabs her by the throat and barely, like, choking her. Well, even when, say, she was disguised as Psylocke, because Psylocke was unconscious. And when I watched X-Men Apocalypse, and, of course I watched it before, we reviewed this, I completely forgot. I thought that was Psylocke, like, betraying Apocalypse, but no, it was Raven in disguise, and, because her in disguise as Psylocke, like, going for Apocalypse's throat, and Apocalypse grabbing her by the neck, and we see that it's Raven, and then, like, say, Scott and Beast, like, going after Apocalypse, nothing's really working. They don't stand a chance against Apocalypse. He's too powerful. But when Charles Xavier remembers that, with Apocalypse, like, going into Charles's mind, and going into, I guess, Apocalypse's mind, and basically, like, Charles confronting Apocalypse, and Charles getting, like, pardon my French, like, getting his kick-ass moment, like, taking on Apocalypse, punching him down, like, he succeeds by punching him, but, doesn't last very long, because Apocalypse, he starts beating Charles to the ground, and it seems like all hope is lost, and it seems like that the X-Men are this close to losing. However, Charles has Jean confront Apocalypse by unleashing her powers to he basically tells Jean to let it go. And by doing so, and thus she takes on Apocalypse, and Apocalypse doesn't stand a chance against Jean. And the rest of the X-Men, including Magneto, take on and defeat Apocalypse, and thus he is defeated. And even when, say, as I said, Magneto stepping in, he is redeemed just a little bit, but not fully, of course. Storm, she is definitely redeemed and helps out the X-Men take on and defeat Apocalypse. And as I said, he's defeated. No more of Apocalypse. And we do see at one point Psylocke, you think that she would probably join them, but nope. She just leaves. She just runs off. Like, do you have anything to say on that?
I thought they were going to set her up to be a villain in the next movie, but she just doesn't show up in the next movie, so...
Yeah, you know what? I completely forgot about that, and thanks for reminding me, because, there's so much that they could have done for Psylocke, and for,
She looks pretty.
Yeah, she does. And Olivia Munn coming back to play Psylocke. I feel like mentioning this. I remember reading that she hated her superhero costume because it was tied and so on. But hey,
that's understandable.
Yeah, but I was about to say, hey, some of the actors who have been in costumes where it looks like, they seem perfectly fine in them, but off camera, of course, like, and as they've said, like, some of their costumes are not comfortable, but hey, they pull it off when they're in character, and they do it like troopers. So yeah, and the same goes for Olivia Munn. She did very well in the costume and did her very best as the character of Psylocke. And again, as we were saying, because it's a shame that she didn't appear in the next X-Men film, and the fact that either she would have been one of the antagonists, or maybe she would have joined the X-Men, but nope. They just completely cut her out, and that's the last we see of her at the end of this film. What a bummer, you know? And, like, pretty good characters, and you leave them out in, like, say, the next movie. I'm just saying. But we'll come back to you, Anchorman. What were you going to say?
I'm pretty sure Jennifer Lawrence did not like being in this movie. I don't know. Maybe it's because she didn't like putting on that makeup.
Well, I mean, I don't recall hearing that she didn't like being in the X-Men films, but, like, maybe, like, I mean, probably so. Like, probably the makeup at a certain point, like, and as the X-Men films, like, you know, were coming out and how many she was in, like, you know, I guess, like, she knew that eventually she would no longer be in the X-Men films, and thus, you know, the next one that they would be in, as we all know, that would be her last. And what would happen with Mystique until that movie is reviewed down the road. So anyways, the epilogue to Apocalypse. Well, it seems that with you know, the population, like, rebuilding what Apocalypse did, like, basically, because Apocalypse, and I think including Magneto, like, basically tearing up bits of, like, the city, like, all over the world. Like, golly, like, the Sydney Opera House was getting destroyed. Like, oh my gosh. But, as I said, like, though, like, anything that Apocalypse, like, crumbled and destroyed, like, broke off and, you know, being rebuilt. And we see the same thing happen with the Xavier School. Jean and Magneto rebuilding the Xavier School. And we see that, well, here's another thing, because Storm having a little conversation with Quicksilver, and Storm is well aware, and Raven told her that Magneto is his father, and Quicksilver states to Storm that he's not ready to tell Magneto, but one day he'll tell him. And, you know, for Quicksilver slash Peter, well, he's staying at the Xavier School, and so is Storm, as she establishes. Me too. And we see Raven is teaching the X-Men members from Scott slash Cyclops, Jean, Nightcrawler, and Storm. She's training them, and one last conversation between Eric and Charles. And once again, they're talking about, you know, humankind and how Eric is against humans, and Charles, how he's against humans, like giving the humans a chance and so on. Nothing too bad happens. Even though they're friends, we are well aware, because how they feel about humans. And Eric, well, once again, he leaves, and, you know, they do say their goodbyes for now. And, with Raven teaching them and, you know, taking on, like, the robots that they have for training. So, yeah. Do you have anything to say on the ending to the film, you know, that sequence?
It's a nice ending, I guess, because it's establishing them as the X-Men officially.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and as Raven says, you know, you are now X-Men, and forget everything that your parents and school, stuff like that they taught you. So that kind of stuff. And it was really cool as they were about to go into training, fighting the robots, like the door closing, and with one last shot of Charles, we see him in, like, the blue suit and in the wheelchair, and with the doors closing, and boom, the credits roll. What a great way to end the film right there. And the end credits scene, because, well, at one point, the base that they were at, and they were held hostage by Colonel Stryker. Well, at one point, because Colonel Stryker at one point fled, and, like, he said that he would be right back, but no, he left. Was he basically was he just being a coward? Do you think that's what it was?
Probably.
Yeah, probably so. But the end credits scene, like, you know, on that base, and, well, Colonel Stryker is not present, but we see that they're cleaning up the mess after what Wolverine did. And a couple of guys in suits, like, they put in, like, these, like, I want to say serum in a briefcase. Like, do you have anything to say on that?
I think it's like a post-credit scene that, like, kind of sets up Logan.
Probably. Maybe that, or probably say, well, the next film, Dark Phoenix. But, again, that's all there is. Like, they just have some serum and they put it in a briefcase, though that's it. And there's no dialogue in that end credit scene. And that's the end of the movie right there with the end credit scene. X-Men Apocalypse. Like, this was a really good X-Men film, and once again, another X-Men film being directed by Bryan Singer. And not to mention that, I read this, that Bryan Singer, he considered Apocalypse kind of being the conclusion of the 6 X-Men films. I guess, that includes the first 3 X-Men films, and along with them, First Class and Days of Future Past. I guess so, even though after this, we would get Logan, Dark Phoenix, and New Mutants. They would be the last 3 X-Men films in Fox's own Marvel universe, and with the X-Men films. Yes, I almost forgot about the Deadpool films, those too. Do you have anything to say on that technically X-Men Apocalypse, as Bryan Singer established, that it's kind of like the conclusion of the 6 X-Men films?
I always thought Days of Future Past was the finale, but I guess because the movie did well, they wanted to do a sequel.
Well, yeah, and the fact that we got that end credit scene of a mutant building the pyramids, clearly a tease for what would be in the next X-Men film, and as we all know. Mm-hmm. So, there's that. Okay, so how do we rate X-Men Apocalypse? We'll start with you.
Maybe an 8 out of 10.
Okay, you know what? Yeah, the same goes for me. Like, I'm with you. Yeah, I too give this, 8 out of 10 stars. 8 out of 10 stars from both of us on X-Men Apocalypse. And what about you guys? What did you think of X-Men Apocalypse itself? And what did you think of me and Anchorman's review of the film? Leave comments and give this review video a like, as always. And once again, it was good to have you for this.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, and as I said, I think, this made a lot of sense for Anchorman to join me for this, because, hey, X-Men Apocalypse being the first X-Men film he saw, although technically, you had seen X-Men Origins Wolverine, but still,
I fell asleep in that movie.
Okay. So technically, Apocalypse, it was the first X-Men film you saw?
Yeah, it's just X-Men Origins Wolverine is a Wolverine movie.
Yeah, true. Even though, because that had the title X-Men in it, because, again, X-Men Origins. But anyways. Any last words, saying goodbye?
Farewell.
He says that for me. Thank you very much for watching. We hope you guys enjoyed our review of X-Men Apocalypse. More review videos coming your way. They're going to be awesome. Keep looking forward, and we'll see you guys in the next video/review. And stay tuned later this week, because the next Marvel film in the MCU that I'll be reviewing, well, let's just say that it's a group of superheroes, and this film didn't really do that good, but until you see me review the film and how I think about it, and you probably know which MCU film I'm talking about. Stay tuned for that later this week. Take care, peace out, and X-Men unite!